Old Hans was too late. Perseus nodded. Miss Carol, I want you to be my woman and obey my every command. What? Carol and Winnie outside the room spoke in unison. Winnie looked even more excited than Carol. Perseus chose to ignore Winnie and smiled at Carol. I know it's hard for you to accept, so you can back out any time. Carol was both ashamed and angry, tears streaming down her face, but she gritted her teeth and said, I accept your conditions. I, Carol, will never go back on my word. Old Hans closed his eyes in despair. Now you can save people, right? Carol stared intently at Perseus. Now, it's beyond saving. Perseus shook his head. You're kidding me? Carol was furious. I'm a gentleman. How could I possibly play tricks on you? I only said there was a way to save him, not that I could save him right now. Perseus shook his head regretfully. Now that you're my woman, I have to remind you to think before you speak in the future. Carol rushed forward, seemingly intending to snap Perseus's neck. Perseus remained calm and motionless. Katie appeared in front of him in an instant and grabbed him with ease. Should we strip her naked now? Katie asked. Upon hearing this, Carol rolled her eyes and fainted. Talk and the others were dumbfounded. Are there still idiots this bad these days? Chapter 124 Spilled Water Cannot Be Gathered. Carol slowly woke up and found herself in an unfamiliar room. You're awake, Perseus said, sitting on the edge of the bed. Carol stared at him, then gasped after a moment before instantly remembering everything that had just happened. That was a nightmare. You? Carol stammered, unable to utter a complete sentence for a long time. My name is Perseus. You could just call me by my first name. Perseus said kindly. I won't call you that, Carol retorted instinctively. Hee, you don't have to call me now. You'll definitely call me later. Carol didn't want to see Perseus's smiling face anymore. She looked around, surveying her surroundings. Where am I? My room, Perseus said. Carol stared at him in horror. Why did you bring me to your room? Perseus looked puzzled. Why would you ask such a stupid question? Did you just have amnesia? I don't have amnesia. I remember everything very clearly. I even remember things from my childhood very clearly. Perseus clapped his hands in admiration. Impressive, impressive. So you must remember that you're my woman now. Carol frowned in annoyance, unable to help but hate herself for what she had just done. But she simply couldn't bring herself to take back what she had said. Therefore, she had no choice but to accept this reality. Carol fell silent. Perseus looked at her with admiration. This girl may not be the brightest, and she has a fiery temper like a chili pepper, but that's what makes her so exciting. Her face was outstanding among the country girls. Such a beautiful flower was a rare find in the surrounding area in recent years. She had deeply attracted his attention as soon as she entered the door. She was the kind of girl who was pure and lovely. At first glance, although her figure was a bit thin, she was still well-proportioned. She had a small face and a slender waist. When she walked, her waist swayed, and her curves were quite alluring. With that little temper, the deliciousness is off the charts. You don't just want to teach me a lesson, and then you'll let me go after I learn my lesson, right? Carol forced a smile, her hopes fueled by a strong fantasy. So you're admitting you made a mistake just now? Yes. I admit I have a bad temper, and I was too direct in my speech just now. You're not just direct, you speak without thinking at all. I'll be more careful next time. Carol gritted her teeth, but put on a pitiful look. And Perseus said, You have no idea about my family situation, yet you're pointing fingers at me. If you had asked even one more question, you would have understood me, and things wouldn't be like this now. I understand. I promise I won't do it again. Carol's face contorted in pain. After all that talk, you just won't admit you were wrong, Perseus said coldly. Where did I go wrong? Carol answered instinctively. Perseus laughed. Since you're not wrong, you'll surely keep your promise, right? Carol was immediately covered in sweat. It seems she doesn't have the ability to admit her mistakes. It's all right, Perseus said gently. I don't need you to apologize, because I actually admire you. Really? Carol was overjoyed. Of course it's true because... Why? Because... Perseus walked over and drew the curtains, turning back with a smile. Whether you admit your mistake or not, I will not let you go. Carol's smile froze. Perseus slowly walked toward her. Carol panicked instantly. But you said you admire me. Yes, that's right, Perseus said with a smile. I love to admire a beauty like you from head to toe. I won't miss a single detail. You wouldn't be thinking of doing that to me, would you? Wow, you actually got smart for once. But we're not married yet. This isn't right. Carol's face flushed red, and she was on the verge of tears. Perseus stopped and looked at her with a puzzled expression. Who said I was going to marry you? But are you going to do that kind of thing to me? Doing that kind of thing with you doesn't conflict with whether or not I marry you. Perseus shrugged. I just want you to be my woman, not my wife. Carol was completely stunned. You mean you don't want to take responsibility? Ha ha ha. Congratulations on guessing right again. Perseus had already reached Carol, and then, an hour later, Carol was sobbing uncontrollably, clutching her blanket. You scum. You beast. You perverted lecher. How can there be someone like you in this world? You're willing to do whatever you want, but you're so rude to people. Alas, I am also helpless, Perseus sighed. If you don't correct your personality soon, you will suffer a great loss in the future. But you have a bad temper and are stubborn, and you refuse to admit your mistakes. In order to help you, I have no choice but to take a tougher approach. I hope you can understand my good intentions. Pa, what are you doing with your hands right now? You liar. I will never forgive you. Carol cried uncontrollably, heartbroken. She was forced to complete the most important change of her life without having any time to react. Moreover, the other party made it clear that they did not want to take responsibility. The most crucial thing is that she has no way to deal with it. She didn't even know this man 2 hours ago. Don't cry. It's like I forced you. You didn't resist at all, and you cooperated with me the whole time. What can I do? Carol glared at him, tears welling in her eyes. I'm your woman now. How can I resist you? Her stubbornness is so extreme that it's completely illogical. Perseus was shocked. Is it so hard for you to admit your mistake? He sighed deeply. If you admit your mistake now, will you give me back my virginity? The weather is so nice today. Perseus put his arm around her. Where do you live? How many people are in your family? Although I can't marry you, I will definitely treat you well and try my best to treat your family well. My entire family is dead. It's okay to be angry, but don't bring your emotions into this kind of conversation. Why are you cursing yourself like that? Carol paused for a moment, then said, My whole family is really dead. Oh, Perseus's voice softened considerably. He also regrets this. I originally planned to chat casually for a bit and then find an opportunity to start second round. But if he still does that now, he's just not a good person. Can you please stop touching me? I really can't stand you anymore. I was just trying to comfort you. Then why are you pressing down on me? To comfort you. Another hour later, Perseus, dressed neatly, and Carol, who walked with a slightly strange gait, reappeared before everyone. Everyone's eyes were filled with strange looks. Perseus remained calm. Father, mother, don't worry. For Carol's sake, leave Alan's matter to me. Talk and Gina nodded blankly. Alan, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and thank Miss Carol. Perseus frowned slightly. Oh, thank you, Miss Carol, Alan said sincerely. Carol turned her face away, her grief and anger leaving her with no desire to accept anyone's thanks. She actually gave herself away for a stranger. Winnie was so angry she almost ground her teeth to powder. She gave Perseus almost everything except her first kiss, yet she still didn't get a single confirmation of her status as his woman. This little brat has only been around for a few hours. Ms. Winnie, come with me for a moment. Perseus beckoned to her. Winnie snorted and walked over. An hour later, she was all smiles again. Chapter 125 Target, Eagle Peak City. Perseus, you really will save your brother, right? Talk's eyes were full of hope. Of course, I always keep my word, Perseus smiled. But it will take some time. I need to go to Eagle Peak City for a while first. When I come back, Alan will definitely be saved. That's good, but how long is a period of time? Talk asked hesitantly. No matter how long it takes, you don't need to worry about it. Perseus said indifferently. If you can wait, then wait. If you can't, then let Alan die. We can wait. We can wait. We can wait. Talk said quickly. That's good. Perseus smiled. Father, from today onwards we are considered to be separate families. I won't ask for the separation fee. Just please be careful that the two families don't speak the same language. If you want me to do something, you should act like you're asking for a favor and offer something in return. Don't try to get something for nothing, and don't be arrogant when you're asking for help. Yes, Talk smiled bitterly. He now only regrets why he was so harsh on Perseus in the past. If he could behave like a normal father and discipline his wife and 2 sons, and if the family were harmonious and respectful, things would never have turned out this way. Now, he could only watch helplessly as this child, who already possessed immense power and was capable of changing the fate of his entire family, became a complete stranger to them. Please say goodbye to my mother and the others for me. I'm too lazy to say goodbye to them one by one." Perseus waved his hand and turned to walk toward his carriage. Meanwhile, Carol was also saying goodbye to her teacher. "Teacher," Carol's voice was strained. "Sigh." Old Hans couldn't help but sigh. "I told you long ago that you should control your temper. Otherwise, you'll get into trouble sooner or later, but you just wouldn't listen to my advice. Sorry. It's too late to say anything now. My abilities are limited, and I can't take care of you in the future. What happens to you in the future depends entirely on your luck," Old Hanston said after a pause. "If you still consider me your teacher, and if he doesn't want you in the future, you should come back and study medicine with me." Then, he turned abruptly and walked toward Talk. Carol sobbed uncontrollably as she boarded Perseus's carriage. Inside the carriage, all four men were looking at her. Carol looked around. She didn't recognize anyone except Perseus. She was very shy, but she had no choice but to sit next to Perseus, whom she disliked the most, and continued to wipe away her tears. "We're all going to be companions from now on. Let's introduce ourselves," Perseus said. Winnie was the first to step forward. She had initially disliked Carol, but Perseus had just convinced her through his actions, making her feel that she had to show a gentle and tolerant side and accept Carol. "Hello, Miss Carol. I'm Winnie, Perseus's." She had intended to say that she was also Perseus's woman, but with Ivisa present, she couldn't bring herself to say it. "Are you his aunt?" Carol asked, her eyes red and swollen. "Auntie," Winnie was struck dumb. "I'm not that much older than you." Carol looked her up and down, then curled her lip in disdain. Winnie blushed, her breathing quickened, and she looked at Perseus. "Calm down, let's talk about this in private." Perseus was also a little troubled. Winnie barely managed to suppress her overwhelming murderous intent. "My name is Katie," Katie said expressionlessly. "You don't need to remember my name. You just need to remember that I will protect Perseus's safety. So if you attack him again, I will kill you for whatever reason." "He's the one who attacked me, okay?" Carol exclaimed. "You have no idea how horrible he was to me just now. That's none of my business." "You." Katie looked at her. Carol glared at her defiantly, but her gaze was involuntarily drawn to the great sword in the woman's hand. Then she gave in. Ivisa merely glanced at Carol and said nothing. "Hey, what do you mean by looking at me like that? Are you looking down on me?" Carol was furious. Ivisa completely ignored her, which made Carol even angrier. She was already in a bad mood, and this only made things worse. "It looks like it's about to explode." All right. Perseus frowned at Carol. "Her name is Ivisa. I'm warning you, no matter how bad your temper is, you better watch it in front of her. Don't mess with anyone else, or I'll just dump you somewhere." "You're going to abandon me? Then go ahead and abandon me," Carol cried sadly. "It seems we should set off later." Perseus pulled Carol down from the carriage and came to Talk and Old Hans. "Father, I'm sorry, but please allow me to borrow your room again." Talk nodded in astonishment. Then Perseus dragged Carol back to the castle and into the room that Carol would never forget. An hour later, Carol returned to the carriage and remained silent. She glanced at Ivisa every now and then, wanting to say something but unable to bring herself to say it. "Speak," Perseus urged impatiently. "I'm sorry, Miss Ivisa. I was wrong just now," Carol said dryly, her face flushed. Ivia remained silent. Although Carol was angry, she dared not show it. She was almost killed just now, so she could only look at the other two women. Then she noticed that the old woman named Winnie was staring at her with envy and jealousy, which confused her and gave her a chill. The girl named Katie remained completely calm, though her expression momentarily became slightly unnatural. Finally, she looked at Perseus. Perseus, whom she hated to the core, yet was powerless to do anything about. Suddenly, a thought struck her. "Is she the woman you want to marry?" Carol whispered in Perseus's ear. Perseus did not react. This girl was just a toy he acquired on a whim, with no emotional foundation whatsoever, so of course he couldn't tell her anything from the heart. Seeing his indifferent attitude, Carol was angry, but couldn't help but want to laugh at the same time. This strange contrast startled her. Then she gently pinched Perseus's cheek. The three women and Perseus all looked at her at the same time. Carol lowered her head shyly. "TCH. Pretentious." Winnie sneered. "Am I so busy scolding her that you don't learn your lesson?" Perseus frowned. Winnie also lowered her head shyly. She actually wanted to provoke Perseus by doing something against his will, hoping to get punished in return. But now there's another one, Carol. She knew very well that if she dared to do that, she would be ostracized by Perseus, and that little vixen would get away with it for nothing. Can we